Hey there, folks. I'm Mark, in affiliation with Spectrum Pulse, and we may have caught a breather here. And it's Billboard BREAKDOwn. I don't remember. Alright, I guess this might be the closest thing to normal we're going to get on the Hot 100, possibly for a little bit, because I'm not exactly seeing that big album release that's primed to blow everything open in the next week or two. We may have a bit of a breather outside of the occasional big single that Drake one springs to mind. I mean, there's a story about Tyler the Creator's deluxe release having some impact, but it's mild, all things considered. There's some normalcy here. I'm inclined to roll with that. Unfortunately, said normalcy plays out depressively predictable on the top 10, where taking the number one again is Last Night by Morgan Wallen. Make no mistake, this was a win on the streaming margins and the sales beating out the radio. And that means Kill Bill by SZA got stranded at number 2. Credit to their team for the right tactics. There was the sales discount, the streaming remained strong, the radio push came at the right time, but Morgan Wallen just beat her on sales regardless, and sadly was rather narrow. And the sad fact is that it seems like without the short-term sales discount, I'm not sure Kill Bill's got enough in the tank to sustain that competition. Even if it was enough to completely bowl over Flowers by Miley Cyrus at number 3, where despite a good streaming week, it absolutely has peaked on sales and the radio. Then we got Creepin' by Metro Boomin, 21 Savage and The Weeknd rising up to number 4, which I'm going to chalk up to a strong radio week, but that's also kind of the same case for Die For You by The Weeknd and Ariana Grande at number 5, which is definitely on the downturn, but did have a streaming margins advantage here. Now, this opens up the possibility for Boys a Liar Part 2 by Pink Pantheress and Ice Spice at number 6, where the streaming margins are still good, and the radio margins are finally starting to make noise. Similar case for Calm Down by Rema and Selena Gomez up to number 7, where it couldn't really make streaming inroads, but the radio is really behind it. Now, the last couple that picked up positions, I'm less confident in them overall. Antihero by Taylor Swift rose up to number 8, but again, it's really on its way out. We all know this. Players by Coi Leray rose up to number 9, but that radio is peaking. And then there's Rockin' a Hard Place by Bailey Zimmerman back at number 10, which actually is having a good radio week, and streaming is stronger than you might expect. I'm still not exactly confident in this, but alright, this is some momentum. I'm impressed. That's not something I can say for our losers and dropouts. Not much to speak of in the latter category, just for me to say that I'm very disappointed that Low by SZA is gone. It's probably going to miss the year-end list for 2023 unless she winds up pushing it as a late single and it recharts. Not exactly holding my breath. Now, the losers are a mess here, so let's get started with the debuts that fell off, like Don't Play With It by Lola Brooke and Billy B at 86. I'm not acknowledging that remix, it's not any good. Along with Eyes Closed by Ed Sheeran at 39, and the expected fall off for Like Crazy by Jimin to 45. This is what happens when all you have are sales in your corner. Wasn't exactly a great week for Luke Combs here either, as Growing Up and Getting Old stumbled down to 91 off the return, and Love You Anyway slid down to 36, but really country as a whole didn't have a great week. Among the continued losers, What He Didn't Do by Carly Pearce slid down to 68, Morgan Wallen saw losses for 98 Braves at 96, and Man Made a Bar with Eric Church at 73, and Dawns by Zach Bryan and Maggie Rogers looks like it's out of gas at 97. Outside of that, All of the Girls You Loved Before by Taylor Swift hit 57 on its continued slide, as did Nobody Gets Me by SZA at 92, then Painting Pictures by Superstar Pride looks like its momentum is gone at 74, and Love Again by Kid Laroi just never really got going at 81. Now for our returns and gains, oh boy, it's a mess, so let's try to brush past the former group rather quickly, with Nasty by Russ back at 75, and Death by Melanie Martinez at 98. That last one's only back because of the album. It's not going to stick around, thank Christ. No, where things get a bit more interesting is what's filling in the gaps in our gains, the regional Mexican music, and a lot of it. You can chalk all of this up to Peso Pluma and Nathaniel Cano getting a major push, because every song in this genre that actually gained had them on it. Ella Bella Solo by Eslabon Armado and Peso Pluma up to 17, PRC by the duo is at 64, Por las Noches by just Peso Pluma is at 65, and CHE La Pizza off the debut with Freza Regida at 80. Yikes. And yet somehow it actually gets worse, because Slut Me Out by NLE Choppa is getting traction on streaming for some reason. It's up to 43. Thankfully, Tyler the Creator saw a major boost for Dogtooth up to 33. I don't really care for the song, but Tyler winning tends to be a boon. But what interests me more here is the cover of Fast Car by Luke Combs up to 32. I can't shake the gut feeling this is going to be some sort of sleeper hit this year, and the streaming and sales are really coming along to match it. Let's just keep an eye on it. I think there's something there. But now on to our new arrivals. Not a lot of them this week, and they're also all over the place again, so let's start off with number 99, Hot Boy by Nardo, Wick featuring Lil Baby.
Close cause I might burn you. I'm a hot boy, but I put ice on all my bitches. I'm a hot boy, I bring the fire to the trenches.
The first thought I had when I saw this was, are they gonna flip Bobby Shmurda's song from 2014? That was coming on 9 years ago. And it's not the case with this. Kind of shame, that would have been interesting. Beyond the stuttering synth bass, cheap sounding squeaky percussion, and the muted piano sample that only highlights how much of a non-presence Nardo Wick seems to be. He's trying to do this breathy 21 Savage impression with the dead-eyed flexing, but there's no atmosphere to a song this busy in its low-end groove. And he's got no flair or any sort of complexity in his bars that impresses me. Pair it with the interchangeable, increasingly anti-social flexing from Lil Baby. I mean, it's not bad, but I'm gonna forget this song exists in record time. Number 95, I Know by Kanii.
I fucked up, oh girl, I know. I fucked up, oh girl, I know. I fucked up, oh girl, I know.
Alright, another song going viral on TikTok. I gotta be honest, reading up on Kanii, I was concerned about this. He's 17, from Washington, D.C., put out a flurry of projects the past couple of years, claims to be influenced by XXXTentacion, he's going for that Jersey club sound, and yeah, I'm not a fan of this. For one, the vocals sound very compressed and crushed at the very top of the mix, already getting clipped by the bass around that cooing sample. It's got a roughness and kind of an amateurishness that doesn't really surprise me when you discover that Kanii mixed and mastered this himself, and I gotta say it, his voice reminds me more than it should of Tory Lanez. But I do hear that XXXTentacion influence, the rough production, the abbreviated song structure, the undercooked hook, the condescending petulance in the relationship drama where he's trying to be sincere but keeping things only on his own terms. It comes across as really adolescent, not really that likable. Certainly not something I would pair with that pulsating Jersey club bass. It doesn't really work. So yeah, while I get why some people might like it, yeah, not a fan. Number 89, WHARF Talk by Tyler the Creator featuring A$AP Rocky.
Bring some fiction and a nightlight, record player, when you're top 5, where we going? We should get lost, no more questions, let the WHARF talk.
I feel like this is a combination for a flexing song that makes all kinds of sense. I don't expect depth from Rocky, but he seems like he'd be a good compliment to Tyler in terms of flair and class, and yet, okay, I'm not against Tyler singing throughout the entire song, but without any tighter rapping, I'm not sure he's a smooth enough vocalist to work all that well here, opposite those hollow synths, rattling guitars, and the sharper percussion and bass line. A$AP Rocky should not be the only person rapping on this song, and that's before we get that really awkward squawking on the outro that completely kills the mood. But that's the weird thing with this song. It's trying to be slick, catch some of that opulence on a yacht with a lot of expensive brands and booze, but also be kind of a little clumsy and kind of own it too. But the texture's just off, especially with those synthesizers and Tyler singing. It doesn't click for me in the same way a cut like Hot Wind Blow does. Don't get me wrong, I wanted to like this, but it's another song where I get why it was cut from the album. That's all I'm saying. Number 82, Need a Favor by Jelly Roll.
Savior, oh, if I only talk to God when I need a favor, God, I need a favor.
I guess I shouldn't be surprised I'd be getting another song from Jelly Roll to chase Son of a Sinner, that single that's primed for that upcoming album, that he'd lean into the religious elements. Oof. The results don't work for me here at all. If it wasn't for the occasional fiddle flourish, it would remind me of every clunky rock act who tried to cross over into the country charts in the mid-2010s, going for the dullest blues rock attempt imaginable. My god, we had Rag and Bone Man already 6 years ago. Why are we still chasing down this formula? It doesn't help matters that the writing's a lot worse this time. Jelly Roll's voice doesn't have that warmth or gruffness in this lane, and him asking God for a favor comes across as weirdly sour, especially as he knows he's probably not gonna get it given his own wayward life. But come on, throw him a bone now, why don't you? I guess the gospel elements and some of the warmer arrangement, it's not bad, but I had a really strong negative reaction to this. I think we got the one good song out of Jelly Roll. I'm not sure this one's worth another glance, cause it kinda sucks. Speaking of which, number 61, Void by Melanie Martinez. So, the Melanie Martinez fans have been showing off a lot of class act behavior to fellow critics online recently. It's one of the reasons I have zero interest in covering Portals when I already have plenty of good albums on my schedule than her underwhelming derivative trash fire. But now there's another single that managed to chart in the Hot 100, probably will not last after this week when the album impact fades. And yeah, this is bad too. And for a lot of the same reasons I really didn't like Death. The vocals are painfully over-processed, and while I actually think the bass and drum mixing is pretty decent this time, the song seems like it's set to explode to this big pop rock chorus, and it just never happens. It feels desaturated and washed out. It doesn't do anything to set up much of an atmosphere or a void-like presence, to say nothing of paying off a crescendo. Now granted, this is where the writing drives the song to a wall. Yes, Melanie, if there are rotten things inside you, they were injected by society. You're the only one who could judge you. But I think my larger problem is that for as edgy as this song is trying to be, I don't buy it. It's a pretty evocative image to lean on suicidal ideation and kneeling on a metal grater that cuts you up to a point where you're tangled in your own intestines. I'm sorry, this is not a Cannibal Corpse album. The graphic provocation's got no weight to it with this execution and this production. It doesn't fit well with any sense of deeper vulnerability that she can't sell even if she wanted, and that's been my consistent problem her entire career. Even if this is an authentic emotion and scene for Melanie Martinez, she can't sell its reality, and I'm not really interested in giving her much more grace. This blows. Next, number 48, Sorry Not Sorry by Tyler, the Creator.
Song could feel like a chore since I'm sorry I'm your kid. Sorry we ain't close as we should have been. Sorry to my old friends, stories we could have wrote if our egos didn't take the pen. Sorry to the freaks I let on.
God, I really hope at least there's gonna be one Tyler song I like. And I'll say this is probably the closest to it, with the old soul sample flip and Tyler rapping on one extended verse where he emphasizes apologies to those who deserve it, and giving the middle finger to those who really don't. It reminds me of a similar thematic arc that played it for Kendrick across Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, where Tyler probably extends more grace to folks than some of them deserve, but he's also never been a role model, and with his platform, it's gonna reinforce both his strengths and flaws, and the framing accepts that. So I do like the genuine remorse at friends and families and ex-partner for how things don't work, and I like how he's not apologetic towards the fans that stalk him or his partner or spread lies about them, or those who want to claim to be friends and aren't, or those who want him to be less pretentious or not grow up. And I think there's a point in highlighting the unproductive envy of those who wanted Tyler to not succeed as much as he has. That being said, Tyler's got that provocateur side that wants to shove his flexing into people's faces, backed up with the argument of, well, you could never do it, let's see you try, and I mean, come on. Even if it's very human, and he's right that he can't save people even if he tries, I'm not sure this helps. I mean, I give him more leeway than I give Kendrick Lamar, and I think his flow and delivery is impressive here, but I also get why this might have been cut too, especially with songs like Massa on Call Me If You Get Lost that hit these notes more effectively. I think the song is interesting. It's overall good. I would not call it great. And finally, number 16, Fight the Feeling by Rod Wave. I have to be be brutally honest, it's tough for me to assess where Rod Wave's career is right now. The past couple of years have left a pretty shaky release schedule, even if the quality's been mostly consistent for better or worse, which might be an indicator as to why existing issues haven't been resolved. So I had limited expectations with this, even if it debuted really high, and I'm otherwise a big fan of Rod Wave. And, okay, look, there's a lot about the formula that works here. Between the muted pianos, the electric guitar flourishes, against the trap percussion that's actually considerably better mastered than usual, the Chipmunk sample doesn't add much to the song, but doesn't really detract from it either. I think what's more telling, though, is the lyrical focus. This is a song directed at women who are not in touch with their feelings, but would rather just go out and party, when they don't have everything together, and yet they're trying to fight back that feeling of crying at a love song in the club. I mean, it's an interesting moment. In a different era like the 2000s, the genders probably would have been reversed for sure, but this approach reminds me a lot of the songs that are all about the sensitive girls who are holding it all together until one guy can help fix some of her damage, and that was all the rage in the singer-songwriter adult alternative scene for years. And while Rod Wave's material has kind of skirted around this territory before, this is the first time where it feels really blatant. Now granted, he paints the scene with enough detail and soul that I wind up liking this a lot more than, say, Lil Wayne's How to Love, but it does not reach his best, I gotta say that. That being said, I think it's probably the most here that I'll revisit, so he just barely clinches the best of the week over Tyler, whereas, Melanie Martinez with The Void is getting the worst. Even with that bad Jelly Roll song, Void feels more nakedly incompetent across the board. Surprise, surprise. Next week, not seeing something that's gonna blow everything up outside of that new Drake single. Maybe we might be a little bit more measured and reasonable for a bit on the charts. We will have to see. But until then, I'm Mark. You're watching Billboard Breakdown, affiliated with Spectrum Pulse. And I'll see you next time.